All right, so now we come to time dilation meditation. And this is a meditation which you can do, which will help you to sort of break apart this sense of time. Now, here's where this comes from. If you have two things which require the exact same amount of time, empirically speaking, then there will still be a difference in the feeling, in the experience of the time, of how long it takes. So basically what that means is if we get you to do one thing and we start a stopwatch and we say, okay, do this for 7 minutes, and we start the stopwatch and then we stop the stopwatch after 7 minutes, we say, okay, so you did that for 7 minutes. And then we say, okay, now you do this thing and you're going to do it for 7 minutes. And then we start the stopwatch, you do it for 7 minutes, and then you stop the stopwatch. Then those two things that you have done are empirically the same length of time, right? Of course, we did the stopwatch, we're accurate. But your experience will be different. Your phenomenology will be different. You will say, damn, one thing took a very long time. It felt like an eternity. And one thing went very quick. One thing just was over in the blink of an eye. Now, of course, what those things that you do are depend on, well, your composition, right? Your condition as a human being, who you are. Some things, it sort of comes back to this old thing of time flies when you're having fun. And the longest hour is the last hour of work in the day, right? I remember this when I was working, I won't say where, but it was always like from 4 o'clock in the afternoon to 5 o'clock. When I would finish work at 5 o'clock, it would be like, damn, that hour of just, right? It would seem to take forever. And sometimes I would be working with someone and they would say the same thing, right? And then I would go home and do what I want. And then it would be like, whoa, time flies, from 5 to 6 just goes whoosh out the window, right? So it's the same thing. And then, we could go on all day about the examples, right? Another example was when I was a kid, my dad made me wait in the car while he was in the hardware store. And I remember sitting in the car waiting for him, and he finally came back, and it wasn't a punishment. He was just, doing what he was doing. And I was so upset. I was just like, you took forever, right? And I was crying and I was being a real baby about it. I was just a kid, but it really felt like forever, right? It felt like an eternity. So that's what we're working with here. That's what we're playing with here. This is the actual time dilation method. And these lists, right? This goes on and on. Sometimes when you're working and you're getting into flow state, the time just goes boosh right after you. Now, of course, it is always different. There's not always the case of, time flies or eternity. Sometimes it's somewhere in between. Sometimes it's like, okay. Sometimes it's just normal. That's part of it as well. And we can go on all day about the examples. But here's where we get to time dilation meditation. And here's how we work with this. What we do is, I've set up these resources for you so you can do it. What you do is you sit down, close your eyes, and you meditate for 30 minutes. So this is silent meditation, ABC meditation. You just sit, you're doing nothing, your eyes are closed. It's just 30 minutes or however long. I'll probably get you some 30-minute brackets and some 1 hour brackets. And if you want, I can create some different resources for different lengths of time. Doesn't matter about the length of time too much, but you're just sitting and you're silently meditating with your eyes closed. And what we have is a bell. And that bell will sound every now and then at irregular intervals of time. And what your job is to count the bells. How many times has that bell been sounded? So that's it. And I'll create the resources so that you can do this a number of times with the bell appearing at different intervals, at different lengths, so you won't be able to predict it. You won't be able to get used to it and sense, when the time is coming. But even that won't matter so much. Even when you know how many bells there are, how many to count, you'll still have to count how many there are. Now, you'll notice in normal meditations, in some techniques, this is actually done in a very much straightforward way, which is that you count the breath. When you count the breath, this is a traditional age-old meditation. You're doing the same thing, and you can experience time dilation by counting the breath. The breath is a regular interval. It is an ever-going event. And how you feel about that is actually something that changes your time perception. So counting the breath, you'll notice that your feeling of how long it's taking to do each cycle will occur. And you'll notice, well, your mind will wander off, and you'll then have to say, okay, I have to come back to counting the breath. It's the same with counting bells, except that now you have a longer gap between them, and it's an irregular thing, and you have to remain alert, and the bell will sound when you've actually forgotten that you're counting bells. You'll actually be going off thinking about da-be-da-be-da-be-da, the mind is doing all sorts of things and your experience is somewhere else. And then you'll hear the bell and you go, okay, that's bringing me back. That's bringing me back to this perception. Now, another component of this, when you hear the bell, you count it and you assess how long has it been since the previous bell sound. So was it longer or shorter than the previous bell sound? And you can do that, of course, once you've heard enough bells and you're experiencing the long time. And then you'll be getting into, well, was that bell after a long time or a short time? And when you're doing that and you're assessing the time, then you're really starting to warp the time. And this is one of the things that you notice with time dilation. Has it been a long time, right? Sitting in the car, waiting for my dad to come from the hardware store, has it been a long time? Now, for me, by my assessment, it felt like a long time, right? Probably for him, he felt like he was just being 5 or 10 minutes and he wasn't taking a long time. That's the same thing that we're working with here. So all you have to do is sit down with your eyes closed, download the audio so that you can listen to it. I might include a video. I'll probably include a video version, but you really only need the audio version. And then you can listen to the instructions. I'll restate the instructions on the beginning of the meditation so you know exactly what you're doing, and then count the bells. How many times do you hear that bell sound? And the extra component of this is that you can assess how long has it been since the previous bell sound. And that's the practice. That is the time dilation meditation. So when you're ready, jump on over and give that a go.